Good morning.
Morning.
How's everyone doing this morning? Well, welcome to our next educational session, which is what lies ahead for e-commerce. And it's been a wild ride, and I think you all have been part of that. So good to see you all here. I don't recognize some of you. If you take your mask off, I would, but don't do that. Don't do that. My name, well, first of all, my name is Steve Gianquero with Steve Gianquero Associates. And up to about 4.5, 5 years ago, I was with the Save-Mart companies for many years prior to that. And I remember talking to my team before I left, and we're talking about e-commerce, home delivery, click and pick up, the store environment. But we were doing a lot of talking and not a lot of doing, and I remember telling them, I think I'll be dead before we get anything done here. We need to get moving. Well, fast forward, things got us moving. And after I left, of course, the pandemic came, and that really got things moving. So now that company is playing in all three channels. It's even delivering groceries with a robot at a store in a radius of 5 miles around that store. So things have happened quickly, and we're going to take a look at that and take a look at how it has really affected each segment of our industry. So we have a great panel here to discuss that with you today, and it's going to be a lot of fun to hear what these professionals have to say. First, we have David Bishop, who's partner with Brick to Click, and he's the guy that has the story and the numbers behind the story. So it's going to be really good to hear what he has to say. Then we have Michael Shutt from the Rayleigh's family of stores. Michael is the director of produce and floral for that company, a young, progressive merchant, and I know we're going to love to hear what he has to say. And when you've been around in the business as long as I have, one of the rewarding things is to see young professionals come into the business and thrive and grow. And one of those individuals is our next panelist, Micah Shea, who's the Vice President of Sales for Taylor Farms. I've known Micah, for 20 years. He still looks like he's 20, but I've known him for 20 years.
Produce, baby, produce.
So great individuals here, great professionals, and I know that our discussion is going to be fun and informing. So with that, why don't we have the story and the numbers from David?
Relative to you, first of all, Steve, I'm also young. I mean, I'm 52, so also just background, way back when I told Steve back in the 90s, I started off at Willard Bishop doing a lot of perishable category management with Fresh Facts, had the joy of really breaking a lot of new ground relative to perishable category management. So as my life has evolved with everything else, now I have the pleasure of trying to make sense for how technology is impacting, or importantly, enhancing the way we shop, specifically for groceries. So with that, if you want to go ahead and just click the next slide, if you don't mind. So let me just ask by show of hands, how many people within the last 30 days have bought groceries online? Okay, good. So click. So I have a slide here that says that e-grocery is like, let's get it going here, Steve, drum roll.
There you go.
Hang on. This is technology. Is like, if you remember the famous fable of the blind men feeling the elephant and trying to describe what that elephant looks like to someone else. Well, e-commerce is a lot like that. You know, that question is a pretty simple question, right? You raised your hands. But if you're like me, and I'm not an attorney, I would like, what do you mean by groceries? So that's the product. That's the what. What do we mean by groceries at Brick Meets Click? Really, basically, any product category that you can buy typically in your local grocery or supermarket, right? I don't care about the specific SKU. It's the category, right? Seamless shopping. But when I say shop online, where are we talking about? Is this ship to home? Is this delivery or pickup like Steve? Those are the methods by which we receive. That's how we receive those orders, right? And then, of course, there's the channels. Well, in the physical world, we know there's big boxes, mass discounters, hard discounters, grocery, natural, organic. We know all that. Online, it seems like we forget that, but it's the same thing. And some of those channels are, again, conflated by the fact of how we receive that. So it's a simple question. It's not really a straightforward one to answer, but it's something that we really, really focus on. And if you're at all confused about this topic, congratulations, you are one, in the majority, and two, you're honest with yourself, right? And it's a good signal to us that you're starting to ask the right questions, hopefully, about what this is and what does this mean to my life and to my business. So here. So we know that COVID has disrupted the way we live and the way we work. The context is, pre-pandemic, we were probably running on a monthly basis $2 billion in grocery-related sales originating online. Okay, originating means I go online and that's where I place the order. How I receive that order, be it delivery, pickup, or ship to home, immaterial at that point, right? We do look at that, but the point is these are all encompassed there. So $2 billion in August 2019. If we just looked at March, and keep in mind, California was the first state to enact the stay-at-home bans on March 19th of 2020, but we had about 2 weeks. We saw about a fourfold, I think it was, increase in the sales rate. But if we were just looking at year over year, August 20, we have a 3x over pre-pandemic. So a huge jump. And of course, everyone said, well, this is a blip. Well, unfortunately, the pandemic is becoming an epidemic. It's not going away. So guess what? This isn't going away. So now, fast forward to 2021, year over year, we're now clipping at a rate of 5% growth on an elevated base. Unheard of. We've gone from just about 1.5% of share of wallet going online to over 12%. If we back out ship to home, if you're not in that business, it's about 10% for a grocer. But that really depends on a lot of factors. Again, 7 blind men and the elephant. Can't really describe that. But the point is, we have an elevated base that isn't going to go away. It's only going to grow further at, albeit very consistent rates that we saw long term. And if you went before the pandemic, we were on a slow, steady incline that was accelerated and boosted by this catalyst called COVID-19. We are now retrenching at an elevated base. We are reverting to long-term growth rates that will see the 15 to 20% slowly taper back. But again, it's not going back. So fundamentally, the business has changed. We now need to deal with not the new normal. There is no normal about this. It's the new retail realities. That's what we have to deal with, right? COVID changed the way people buy products. So retailers need to change the way they sell products. Really simple. Not easy, but simple. So when we look at it, okay, about half the room raised their hand. Our latest research from August of last month shows that approximately 50% of all U.S. households made at least one online purchase for groceries last month. That's about, I have it here, 69 million households, okay? But we also know the size of the pool we're all fishing in now, right? COVID has revealed that. Everyone wondered where the ceiling was. Well, first of all, look at the red. Only 22% of households have never bought online. There's reasons for that. About half of them, believe it or not, don't use the freaking internet. They're mostly older than most of us. And then there's other people who genuinely love the sensory social experience of shopping in stores. God bless them, right? But we have a lot of people who've done it in the last year, but frankly, we buy groceries every day, every week. So looking at last year makes very little sense in a high frequency, high penetration business like grocery. Last month is a very low bar too. So we have half the households making some purchases online, again, accounting for about 12 to 13% of their share of wallet. The question is, what's your share, right? You need to measure that. But going forward, cost of acquiring new customers going up. The importance of engaging customers, or what some people call retention, is only becoming more important. All that goes to how do we improve the user experience? Tech talk, but it's making a more seamless shopping experience, right? So that's what we're here to talk about. as we look at this, it's also important to remember you can't group everyone together. The way people shop online is really not that different than the way they shop in the real physical world, right? Someone who shops with grocery online, number one reason is the product assortment, right? Fresh, perishable products. And if you're looking for meat and you want a special cut, you don't go to the big box because they don't have a saw in the store, right? You go to a grocer supermarket, right? Service departments reign the day for the conventionals. But when you go to the mass online, the number one reason they go there is low cost, right? That's what they're known for. They're EDLP positioned, right? They're not the high-low. The point that we keep beating in the heads of retailers who believe they need to focus on competing on price, it's a race to the bottom that they will not win, okay? Only mass and discount does that. And in fact, if we then get into the notion of speed, that's not only a race to the bottom, it's really a race that almost no one will win, okay? So it's important to understand who your customer is and why they shop with you and deliver against those aspects, right? Again, simple but not easy. Don't worry about that. So it comes down to not that he was going to do anything about it. It comes to the user experience, right? So you then have order everything that I want. Okay, again, if we look at grocery versus mass, there's reasons why these numbers are going to be different. We won't go through the details. One of the reasons why not everyone can find what they want at a mass discounter is because they use what they say, quote unquote, real-time inventory to only show you what's in stock, even though that's not true. Whereas most grocers, because they don't have real-time inventory, smartly and should consider consistently and continuing to use substitutions as a way to kind of adjust for that, right? So when we look at that, get everything I want, we know out of stocks are an issue, but the point is, if I put 10 items in my basket, did I get 10 items back? Ideally, we want the exact perfect order, but at minimum, we want to have an acceptable order which has substitutes, right? We talked about this on the phone call. I ordered conventional strawberries and I got organic strawberries. I was fine. I wanted strawberries, right? They communicated that. And so as you go through this, what you'll see between the red and the black dots, red dots are the first timers, the black dots are what we call the fourth time or more, because you don't save time shopping online until you get to that fourth order. Because anyone who knows anything and's done this knows it's extremely challenging to build a basket of 30 items online the first time. You have no purchase history, you have very little familiarity. The search isn't necessarily your friend because it doesn't have past search history and algorithms to play off of necessarily. So again, the point is these distinctions matter as we go forward. And I'll just leave it this way. As I said, we're not going back. In fact, we're only going up. Before COVID, we would tell retailers in our sales forecast for their trade areas that 2/3 of the future growth in the coming 5 years was going to be derived or originated from online. Today, that's north of 80%, okay? If you are a retailer who is, God forbid, not online, your in-store sales, without adjusting for inflation, is going to grow at an anemic rate that's almost zero, okay? It's 0.2. If you're online and you are looking at that as a separate business, it's going to grow 20x faster than in-store. Now, how you account for those sales and give credit to store ops is a different discussion, but the point is, if your business plans don't reflect a future that includes online, the question is, what's your future, right? So with that, let me just throw the grenade back to you, Steve. I kind of stirred up the dust. I want to get the thoughts going, and hopefully that kind of sets the stage.
Thank you, David, and there's a lot there.
And I'll give this back to you. I don't want to keep holding that. It's a lot of responsibility.
There's a lot there and a lot to go over. Michael, from the retail point of view or vision, how does that sound with what David has presented, and also how does that tie in with what you're seeing?
I got so caught up in the presentation, I forgot I was up here. I thought I was an audience member. I was just listening to the numbers.
I did too. It was amazing.
Just write the check to David then.
Yeah.
All right. Come on.
So I guess I would start by trying to articulate it. Anybody ever gone fishing? Maybe watch somebody fish? ESPN, 3 o'clock in the morning? Just me? You know, there's that first bit of adrenaline when the pole begins to dip, and you know that there's a fish on. Starts to run a little bit, takes a little bit of line, a little bit more adrenaline and excitement, and then the fish runs, and it's going to unspool the entire reel, and you're grappling to try and hold that line before all of it runs out. That's grocery retail over the last 20 months. We were all, regardless of where you were on your arc of standing up your online platform, we were all grasping, and we had to get there quickly. Where are my Gen Xers at? That was us. We weren't the early adopters for this. Everybody after us, it's natural. For us, our food purchases became much more intimate, right? Everybody was not just eating, at home for dinner, maybe catching breakfast. That was your cafeteria for your kids. That was where you were having your daily lunch, even during your workday. And so we saw that we had to really catch up and stand up our platform quickly. We have a behavior, it's called eCard. If you're not our customer, you can sign up today, we'll get that for you. But that was primarily a click and collect base, right? You could go on 2 a.m. in your boxers, order your groceries, and then set a time to go and pick it up. We were less invested in the actual last mile of the platform, and so we had to get there. And there was a lot of tools, and I'm sure that other retailers had to, Save Mart probably went through some of those same things. How can we do this efficiently? Because that's what we experience now, and what we're going to experience going forward is this platform now being profitable. And so you have to, get the analytics and the algorithms for the routing, for the delivery, and something that we did is it's just controlling that last mile and procuring, the food jets. So now I like to think of us as we're a customer experience company, and so how can we mimic what the customer, Mrs. Corrigan, when she comes into the store, how can we make sure that her online experience mimics that? And so that was a big challenge. And then not disrupt the brick and mortar business. So over the course of this last 20 months, we've piloted a couple dark store concepts where we could actually provide a relief valve for our really busy high penetration e-cart business, and push all that Instacart and everything into that hub and kind of lower the pressures on that. So again, we're not disrupting our primary work stream, which is our brick and mortar customer. Yeah. So it's been a lot of different touch points to really get this going. I think it's going to be the future for us is now. I mean, I've been with Rayleigh's 35 years, so for me, in my mind, when I started, home delivery was like milkman. Right. And then that went away, and now we see the coming of a whole different wave. So,
Michael, I've often said the customer. I mean, I remember observing this 4 or 5 years ago, that the customer really wants it all. They want the in-store experience sometimes. Sometimes they want their groceries delivered to their home, and sometimes it works out where it's better if we can order online and pick it up. How do you see the relationship of those three lanes in your stores?
I think as a brick and mortar retailer, we have a discernible advantage. We already own the relationship with the customer. So, there's certainly a small percentage of our customers that are only doing online, but the vast majority are pivoting based on their schedule, based on the convenience. And so they might be a in-store shopper, 30% of the time, 50% of the time. The other times, they're not. And so we have to really make sure that the same experience that they get when they're in the store, how do we replicate that? And because we are a grocer and we're used to the customer service, mechanism of business, we just have to lap that over to the online part.
Mm-hmm. Micah,
Sir.
So you're in charge of feeding this animal now. So what has transpired for you?
All I see is opportunity with stuff like this. I mean, you look at this, the trends, and as long as I've been doing this, calling on you, we started talking about how to get consumers to move into our category, move throughout the category. We always talked about trading up, getting consumers to start at lower retail items and move up to the premium items. And we were good at that by putting deal tags in front of the product. That was one of the few ways that we had to drive awareness of new products on the shelf. I sell packaged salads. The packaged salad set is pretty extensive. For a consumer walking in, that can be hard to shop sometime. when we start talking about the e-commerce platforms that are available through our customers like Rayleigh's, it's a wonderful opportunity to be able to tell a direct story, a more detailed story about the product, and get awareness in ways we've never been able to get in the past. Develop deeper relationships with those consumers, because we know that those consumers, as they start engaging with your platform, they engage in a much deeper way. They're looking for more content. We want to provide that transparency. We've always known we have a fantastic story to tell. We have a ton of information about our products, how we grow them, how we clean them, the supply chain throughout. We just have been stifled by ways to tell that story. Not many consumers come to taylorfarms.com, more and more, but a lot of them go to rayleighs.com looking for a lot of different information. And if we can line up our values, which I know we have a lot in common, it's a wonderful opportunity to get more than our fair share of business for our products, for our categories, and like I said before, to really educate the consumer about all the good things that we've done as long as we've been in business. But perhaps they're going to hear about it for the first time.
Mm-hmm. So you're talking about innovation on how we connect with customers. And innovation in business is the, that's the fun part of the business and the lifeblood really of the business. How do you see this? How do you see innovation moving forward with e-commerce?
Yeah, let me give a real example, bananas, right? You go in the store, you got 7 stages of ripeness for bananas, green to, brown for your banana bread, right? How does that experience of choosing what you want at that moment transcend into the digital space? Most grocers just simply say, tell me you want bananas, right? Or, plantains or whatever. They don't give you the option to select the ripeness. There are some that do. The rub is then the operations side. What happens on the pick and pack stage when someone asks for a 7 or, the most ripe, and that's not available? What does the picker do? So innovation has to be balanced with execution, right? It's strategy meets execution. We need to bridge that. The suppliers need to advocate on behalf of the retailers to move that forward, right? Mm-hmm. And I think there's so many opportunities. The key to remember is online is a buying activity. In-store is a browsing activity. So how do we make it more discoverable? How do we make it more engaging? The suppliers know their products. Retailers know their customers. They have to work together.
That's amen. Right?
Profound, right? Amen, right here, right here,
Amen.
right there. Fist bump.
And Steve, innovation has always been, the heart of what we do at Taylor Farms and Earthbound. We've talked about this a lot of the last 2 years. We've spent looking just around at the challenges that are right at our feet. You don't often, we haven't been able to look down the road and think about what's next. And certainly the innovation piece from the product side is one part of it, but we've all gone through so many different stages of the pandemic. The innovations have come through logistics, operations, how we're interacting with our customers. We heard about a little bit in the last panel about just efficiencies in our trucks, making sure we're utilizing every space on the truck, utilizing every space on the shelf, everything in your warehouse, because it's all been impacted so much. And then to find time to have a conversation about the next organic salad or kit along those lines, for somebody like you, it's probably like, hey man, I'm just trying to keep the lights on here. That fish is pulling pretty hard. And I give so much credit to the retailers who have continued to look down the road and maintain that focus and discipline on best practices in the category, and certainly new products, innovations is a huge part of that.
Right. Michael, you mentioned hubs, and you've got a couple dark stores where you're doing that. What do you think about that going forward? Is that something in the future, and how does that tie in, Micah, to supply side? How is this phenomena affecting how you will do business nationally going forward? Michael first.
I think that just to level set, because David gave us a lot of numbers, but just our numbers, in the first 60 days, we saw 92,000 new subscribers. That's a phenomenal. We're a 120 store chain. We only offer the service in 95 of the stores. So you can do a really simple math of what that meant for each store. That's where the dark store and the hub came into play. And so we've actually done a couple different models, and we'll continue. where you can even go into a store. A lot of our stores were built back in the 90s when you put everything in the store. 65,000, 68,000 square feet. Now you can right size a store and maybe take that down to 40 and make 20 a hub. And so you can do it in store, and now you have the selection right there. So again, without disrupting the brick and mortar. So if you strategically start looking at opportunities whether it's lease opportunities in your own company, in different plot points, and finding those opportunities to lower the pressures. And that's really what it started. We had to lower the pressures.
Right.
Our Instacart business went up 421% overnight. 1,872% new users. Those are staggering numbers for, a company that's used to people parking in the parking lot and coming in the door. And so we really had to pivot. And I think the dark store and the hub, there's a lot of learnings that come from that. And again, it's still trying to keep your primary business, or what today is our primary business, right? Because I mentioned the Gen X thing, that's because we still control the largest share of wallet, but that's going to flip. When the generation behind us, when Kevin Trisco actually gets some money in his wallet and he has more buying power, they will then control, and we'll see this flip over. And so that's why we have to get there faster now.
Yeah. Mike, I don't want to have Bruce get mad at me, but what does this mean for you going forward nationally with your network?
Well, specific to how you're going to fill those orders for consumers looking for e-commerce, and it'll put us in a spot where we rethink all aspects of the product, the shape of the container, the box that we ship it in, and what type of trucks we use to deliver the product from our DCs, our factories to your stores, if that's the case. If Bruce was sitting here, he would tell you he wants to deliver to your warehouse twice a day. How can I make my product more perishable, fresher? Again, going back to innovation, how can we get more exciting ingredients in there to generate more sales and more trial? And that's how we built our model across the country, is to be able to have production facilities as close to our key customers so that we can have that flexibility for something that you need specifically, as opposed to somebody in the Northeast. Recognizing that as much as there's commonality across the products and the products that we sell, there are differences. You're looking for something different than the retailer across the street, and we've always hung our hat on being able to offer that. And certainly as things have gotten tighter with the demand being as strong as it is, that makes it harder to fill that need and to provide that service. But it's just one new challenge. So as that becomes something that's either here to stay or a temporary reaction to the increase in e-commerce, we'll pivot, we'll react. That's what we do. That's the fun challenge about figuring out, if that's what you're going to do, how do we respond to that? How quickly can we adapt our packaging and our boxes?
David, all this costs money to make happen. And the money's coming, it's being paid, but it's coming from different places. What does that look like in the future?
Yeah, I think, one, there's a move away from simply looking at online versus in-store as P&L silos and more of an omni-channel. One is the recognition that the store, which is the number one asset that most brick and mortars have, is really being leveraged to propel and support online. Mm-hmm. I think the other is the recognition and the understanding now that the people who shop with you online, let me just be real clear, they already shopped with you in store. People don't go try a new retailer for the first time online, okay? So there is an incredible value in that connection. The second asset they have is the connection, and it's not just monetizing it, but that is part of how you pay for this. You're seeing this increased move toward retail media networks because that's an offset for a high margin offset for this high cost to serve channel. You have efficiency focuses on pick, pack, and staging efforts. You do have alternative fulfillment models, dark stores, market fulfillment that you're looking at. You have slowly a recognition of how we reframe pricing. And this is what I'm doing right now with retailers, which is we're not pricing products anymore, folks. We're pricing a service that sells products. Product markups and explicit fees now need to be looked at in totality to how customers buy and perceive value online. A very slow, tough sell for me to do with retailers today who believe they're an EDLP player and is just going to bleed unless they make these investments, right? So you have those type of things that need to be done going forward. At the same time, you need to recognize where the puck is moving. It's already moved there. It's pickup. Delivery is a component of the business, but even while pickup is most popular in the most densely populated markets, the fact is pickup is more popular than delivery in the most populated markets, okay? In this market here, you'd be lucky if delivery had 40% of the orders. Going forward, with cost and control as the two factors that are going to drive both the customer and the retailer for strategic and economic purposes, pickup is what you need to now focus on. Now that changes the operational models and considerations for people and what the role of microfulfillments are or are not. But these are the strategic questions that retailers like Raley's are going to have to wrestle with as they try to invest in the next 5 years. Because what's clear is the payback is with the online models, however you choose to go forward, and that's strategy.
Mm-hmm. You know, I know there's a lot of evaluation on delivery, and not only on how smooth it goes, the quality of the products. What has the experience been? I know, Mike, I know you've tested before this really kicked off, so I'm talking 3 years ago. You were testing your product being shipped out to different households. What's been our experience, both at retail and on the supply side, with the quality of the product and the experience of delivery?
Yeah, the challenge for all our stuff, as soon as we pack it, it doesn't improve. It starts to turn almost immediately, and certainly we all know that accelerates as the cold chain might be challenged. That's only gotten worse with the type of packing that we're doing now, alternatively for filling this growing e-commerce model. As part of how we look at, frankly, we look more at just the durability of our product. Can it stand up to being crushed and handled? We've all seen produce managers work with our product before, not always gentle. So, frankly, we spend a lot more time thinking about that than we're really relying on our retail partners to provide that best practices in cold chain management. Yeah. We're not going to be able to ship any Yeti type of packaged salads anytime soon, and if we do, it'll probably be $50 a bag, which that'd be fine, but it's going to be a challenge for us. We are going to be relying on our retailer partners to help us with that part.
Michael, any experience?
I think, for us, the fulfillment piece it's less about the fulfillment, it's more about how we deliver on the pivots, right? We've seen what in-stock conditions have looked like over the last 20 months in most brick and mortars, and that's not just the grocery channel, right? There's plenty of things that have gotten run over. And so, again, it's really how you're communicating with that customer, how you're maintaining that tether with them, so that they really feel in our environment that somebody's shopping for them. Mm-hmm. And in our world, oftentimes that can be the same shopper. So they really develop a rapport. Anecdotally, I can tell you, so I get an email from one of our customers who's also one of my suppliers. And he says, I got to tell you about this story that my wife experienced. So they're loyal e-cart shoppers, and this is from the click and collect piece. And the shopper had put a half gallon of Newman's Own lemonade in the bag and put a note on it and said, Mrs. Jones, I see your purchases week over week, and I kind of see the behaviors, and I thought you might like this. It's one of my favorites, so I added it to your order at no extra charge. Those are the type of interactions that a brick and mortar grocer, because they already own that relationship, that's how we do better.
And we've seen actually, not to use a fancy term, conversational commerce. Okay, what is that? It's a person who's picking and packing your order who then decides to communicate with you and make a suggestive sell. Hey, you want this? And guess what? That drives 2% incremental sales to the top line that weren't in the basket when they hit pay. Okay, so I think the human element of that's the social aspect. Like, hey, thanks for the suggestion. Yeah, sure. Not everyone's going to do it, but that's the difference, and that's customer service where, again, if you're not the low price leader, customer service is really important. And so that's a great example, and it works.
Excellent. Well, this is the Organic Produce Summit, right? Anything stick out to any three of you with organics in this e-commerce expansion?
I'll start. For me, it really has to do with just talking about the attributes of the product and the attributes of our operation. I mentioned it before, but it's the relationship piece. Our industry is all about relationships, with us as retailers and suppliers and all the different partners, and being able to have a deeper relationship with the consumers that buy our products is the best opportunity. And on the organic side, just talk a lot about transparency. Again, getting a little bit of credit for the work that we've always done as long as we've been in the business is the wonderful opportunity, and to use and identify the values that we have in common with our retailers to be able to tell that story together.
Mm-hmm. Michael, any shift in categories or any?
Well, I think, Mike and I's relationship, the symbiotic is we're both dependent on the food activity taking place in the home, regardless that you have a food service component. And so we saw a lot of that, right? And I always think it's kind of that, it's a little bit of an incubator. But we saw as food service shut down and more food activity was taking place in the home. I lost my train of thought on where I wanted to take that road, but we'll circle back to it.
Okay.
That's fine. That's the medical marijuana talking probably. Medical, yeah. This is medical, folks.
Did I miss out on something this morning?
Yeah, I don't know. I just had a burrito.
Burrito.
So the way I look at it is, so the retailer sitting here, he's busy. He's got a lot of things to do. He's got bosses hammering him to drive the top line, hit his numbers. And you're the suppliers. You guys know your business. You know what works, what doesn't. So you see the vision. So just think about it this way. The store today is now, the store of yesterday is online today. The shelf yesterday is today's screen. The product package yesterday is the product image today. So for instance, if you don't have an image, it's not going to sell. Okay? If you don't have a good image, it's not going to reflect well. And more importantly, as you go forward, think about the stores today. There's organic sections, right? There's signage. We heard that. Go online. You may be able to say, I'm interested in organics, but how is it organized? How is it presented? When there's a new product, how is it badged, right? Does it just say organic in the description, or can it have some kind of label, right, that brings it up like non-GMO? You should bring those recommendations to the retailer with a reason why, and support it with some base of evidence that you've learned would support that, so that they can test and see if that works. Busy retailer needs that to feed their retail planning and execution. And you really just need to reframe, what does it look like in the future if no one walks in the store and sees that beautiful display? How do we convey that browsing and that sense of discovery online? It's really the challenge to the suppliers, because the retailers got plenty of other ones to deal with.
That's right. That's right.
I think David probably has a bubble chart or a graph that will talk about this. But when you start to distill what the early purchases online looked like, I think everybody was in a different place, and so you saw a lot of indulgent purchases happen. I think more recently, as this thing has aged on, you've seen people kind of get back to health. And I think that's where some of the organic and some of the healthier for you purchases are now ending up into that basket.
Just to add, early on people said no one buys fresh online. And this is where the elephant, someone was feeling the trunk and not the rest of it, right? Well, the reason they said it was they were looking at what was being bought online and shipped to home in a box. And as Mike McCall was saying, the perishables don't transport very well. Maybe Omaha steaks, okay? But most everything else, no. But the fact of the matter was, even in 2016, 2017, working with retailers and their EPOS data, we knew that perishables over-indexed online. Now, of course, the question is, why is that? Because they are bleeding the center store, because those packaged goods can be sold anywhere, anyway, anyhow, anytime. So the differentiation for these guys is on the perimeter, And their customers were saying, that's what we want because you're not the lowest price on the can of soup, so we're going to go buy that somewhere else. So he's not going to win on selling soup. He's going to win on selling your stuff, right? Yeah. So you just need to think, you guys are on the same side of the table as this guy. You just need to give this guy the ammo to do it.
Very true. So we only have a couple minutes left, and let's look forward. Say the four of us are on this stage next year at OPS. What do you think we'd be able to say about e-commerce? Micah?
Well, I obviously it's here to stay. There's going to be more content on there. We're all going to be more efficient with how we serve that model, how we price the products on e-com, how we promote, and I have no doubt it'll influence every aspect of our products, from, like I said before, the size of the container to the box we ship it in, and the type of information that we're printing on the bags themselves, the clamshells themselves, and the requests from retailers like Raley's and others will be for exactly what you just described: is give me the story, give me the romance, give me the copy, to help tell your story more effectively. And we at Raley's want to have the best-in-class content for merchandising your products. Forget about just making sure that the product image on the site is correct and in the right category, the right part of the website. It'll be the brand story. It'll be the type of information playing off the different seasonal programs that are going on, not just in store, but obviously online. It'll just be a much more enhanced experience, and it'll be a lot easier to shop the product, no doubt, as the apps continue to improve.
Mm-hmm. Michael?
I think just the 92,000 that I mentioned as new subscribers, we have a captive audience, and we're not giving that back. I talked about the fishing analogy. We've got our hand on the reel, and we're pulling it in, but that fish is still swimming. It's not running out the line the same way, but it's still out there. And so we're going to continue. I think with efficiencies and profitability goes hand in hand, and I think that's what we'll see from our model over the course of the next 12 months is really getting better, and that's going to mean more swim lanes. That's going to mean less wait time and more channels to be able to get your order when you want it, because that was the first thing that got ran over. The early days was you wanted to get online and order your groceries, and they were giving you a window of 14 days out. Right. Not too many people can wait that long to eat. So.
Not good. Not good.
Yeah.
David?
Yeah, well, I was just going to pick off the retailer comments. They talk about the connection. That digital connection is an emotional connection that will only be amplified by a better understanding of who that customer is and what that customer wants, and then using technology to enhance the shopping experience, to introduce them or suggest things that make sense to them, right? So as you go forward, the merchants who are retailers will say, I want to monetize that connection. And sure, you need to monetize it to a degree to offset these investments. But the marketer says, I want to strengthen that connection and build more meaningful engagement, right? Yeah. Because if that person came in the store and socialized with someone about a product, I want to bring that experience as best I can online. And the data points that are going to be connected to all of us are going to inform that. Now, it's up to the retailers to actually activate against that, but we're already starting to see some really good illustrations of how you build more meaningful engagement in ways even outside the normal purchase cycle. Mm-hmm. So,
well, ladies and gentlemen, I think we're out of time. I want to thank all of you for being here this morning. And how about a round of applause for our panel?
There you go. There you go.